A black man who was enslaved by his white boss for a period of 5 years should now be given $546,000 in compensation. This is what a court has now ruled. Why? Well, this is a sad story, and you would wonder why this is still happening, but this pretty much will explain in the article why it's happening. So in 2019, Bobby Paul Edwards was sentenced to 10 years in prison for enslaving an employee that he had. Edwards coerced, who is John Christopher Smith, into working 100 hours a week without pay. An appellate court recently ruled that Smith is entitled to $546,000 in restitution. And so this particular man was intellectually disabled, and he was enslaved by his restaurant owner in South Carolina for 5 years. Its courts are to award this man $546,000. So that is what the court has ruled. And so, because of his disability intellectually and not knowing that he was working without compensation or not getting enough compensation, who knows? It's what it's saying here, he wasn't getting anything. So, he was supposed to be getting paid, and it was 5 years. So this man basically took advantage of someone who had a disability and was unaware that he was being, you know, treated badly, and not respected in the sense that he deserved pay for the work that he put in helping work for this restaurant owner. And so it was more not help, more looked at as enslavement. And so 2019, Bobby Paul Edwards, who owned what was called a J&J cafeteria in Conway, South Carolina, pleaded guilty to one count of forced, and it says he forced labor and coercing an African American man with an intellectual disability to work extensive hours at a restaurant for no pay at all. So he didn't even pay him, not even change, and was sentenced to 10 years in prison, the Justice Department said in a press release at the time. So, as part of the settlement, Edwards was also ordered to pay back John Christopher Smith $273,000 in unpaid wages and overtime compensation as well. And so Edwards forced Smith to work 100 hours a week without pay, and he would also beat him. So he treated him like he was like back in the times of slavery days, which people thought slavery doesn't happen anymore. And Mitch McConnell, he's saying that since we have a black president, or we had a black president, we don't need to teach kids about slavery, what happened, and how people were treated, that this doesn't happen anymore, and that black people should be okay with the way the world is because slavery doesn't happen anymore. And so here's a case right here. And I'm sure there are many other things going on that a lot of people don't even realize that are really the same things that happened. What they think happened long ago hasn't really been that long ago. It's still happening. And the treatments, police brutality, the shootings, the getting pulled over for things that aren't even worth getting pulled over for in cars by police, and it's happening in a lot of places. A lot of unexplained killings. The only explanation you can come up with is the treatment, the harsh treatment of African Americans. And so here's the case right here, bringing it back to what's going on right here. We see slavery does happen to black people. Yeah, it's not over yet. Racism is still happening. racism hasn't gone away. And so if it did, then this guy, even with his intellectual disability, this man wouldn't have treated him that way. He took advantage of him. He took advantage of him, and because of the disability, but also I believe because of his race, he treated him so harsh. Because it said he beat him. So he beat him with belts, fists, and pots and pans. So on April the 21st, 2020, the Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit ruled that Smith was entitled to double that amount, which would be $546,000. He should get a lot more than that. So the court said the district court did not properly account for the federal labor laws when it made the decision on the compensation. And so minimum wages and overtime compensation must be paid on a current basis as work is done, such as an employee receiving prescribed compensation without delay. And when an employer fails to pay those amounts, the employee suffers losses, which includes the loss of the use of the money during the period of the delay. So the court argued in its filing. And so there's an original article on the Insider about this, probably the same thing that is stated here. So this is the guy that was the owner or the boss that was taking advantage of the African American male who was disabled. So you not only have black men getting killed, but even if they have some intellectual disability, they have people like this man who feel that it's okay to enslave them and treat them like, they are property. So and work them to death and beat them and give them harsh treatment and not pay them anything. And so this is what this article is about. It's sad. So slavery does happen. It isn't a long time ago, and it has happened recent. And so we see that this man's black life didn't matter to this boss he had. And so that is the reason why black lives do matter. In this case, we see it is clear that not all people value everyone's lives, not even the disabled and disabled African American males. They feel that it's okay to beat them with pots and pans and enslave them for 5 years or 10 years or more or whatever, and not pay them any compensation for the work that they put into his business. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go.